You know, I've spent my whole life studying people, what makes them tick, what makes them trust you, what makes them like you. And if there's one thing I can tell you right now, it's this. In just a few seconds, 7 seconds to be exact, you can make a complete stranger genuinely like you. That's not guesswork, it's human nature. Today, more than ever, when the world's moving faster and faces blur together, the ability to make someone instantly feel important, valued, and understood, that's pure gold. And here's the best part, it's not hard. Anyone can learn it. You don't need to be rich, famous, or born with charm. You just need the right approach. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 23 simple principles, timeless truths that have helped thousands of men and women win friends, open doors, and build lasting relationships. Stick with me because number 4, that's the one most folks think they're doing right, but they're dead wrong. I've spent decades traveling this country, teaching these methods in ballrooms, boardrooms, and back porches, and I can promise you, if you put even a few of these into practice, you'll see results faster than you ever thought possible. Let's get started, shall we? Let me tell you about Sarah. She walked into my seminar in Chicago last winter, arms crossed, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Another mandatory training for her sales team. But what happened next changed not just her career, but her whole approach to connecting with people. I don't get it, she told me during the break. I follow all the scripts. I know our product inside and out. But something's missing. She was right, something was missing, and it was the simplest thing in the world. A genuine smile. Now, I know what you're thinking. Really? A smile? That's the big secret? But here's what most people don't understand. Your smile is the most powerful tool you have for instant connection. It's the universal language of warmth, the fastest way to telegraph, I'm on your side. Bhutan, this is crucial. I'm not talking about that practiced plastic smile you see on real estate billboards. You know the one. That smile doesn't reach the eyes, and your brain knows it. We're all equipped with an incredibly sophisticated fake smile detector. It's built into our DNA. The real magic happens with what scientists call the Duchenne smile, named after the French researcher who first studied it. It's the smile that crinkles the corners of your eyes, the one that lights up your whole face. It's the smile that says, I'm genuinely happy to see you. Here's what Sarah discovered. When she started leading with a real smile and not the polite, professional mask she'd been wearing, something shifted. Her meetings got longer, people leaned in when she talked. They remembered her name. But what if I don't feel like smiling? That's what Sarah asked me, and it's a fair question. Here's the fascinating thing. The act of smiling, even when you don't feel like it, can actually change your brain chemistry. It's like a feedback loop: smile first, and the genuine warmth follows. Try this simple exercise. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you look at your to-do list, smile. Hold it for just 10 seconds. Feel the slight lift in your cheeks, the tiny crinkle near your eyes. That's your emotional reset button. For Sarah, she started doing this every morning, plus right before every client meeting. 3 months later, she was her firm's top performer. It feels like I've discovered a superpower, she told me. People just respond differently. The science backs her up. A genuine smile triggers the release of dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, not just in you, but in the person receiving your smile. You're literally giving someone a free hit of feel-good chemicals. In a world where we're all drowning in digital notifications and endless to-do lists, that moment of genuine human warmth is more powerful than ever. Remember, your smile is the first bridge between you and every person you meet. Build it strong, build it genuine, and watch how quickly people cross it to meet you halfway. 7 seconds, that's all you get. In the time it takes to read this sentence, someone has already decided if they trust you, if they like you, if they want to do business with you. I remember watching Mark, a brilliant software engineer, blow $1 million pitch in exactly 7 seconds. He shuffled into the room, eyes glued to the floor, mumbled a greeting, and fumbled with his laptop. The potential investors had made their decision before he even opened his PowerPoint. The worst part? Mark knew his stuff cold. He just didn't know about those crucial 7 seconds. Let's break down what's happening in those moments because once you understand the science, you can make it work for you. Your brain processes first impressions in the amygdala, the emotional center that's been keeping humans alive since we were dodging saber-toothed tigers. In those 7 seconds, people aren't thinking, they're feeling. And they're asking three unconscious questions. Are you safe? Are you confident? Are you real? Here's the game changer. You can prepare for these 7 seconds without becoming fake or rehearsed. It's about aligning your outside with your best inside. Take Angela, a nonprofit director I worked with. She used to rush into donor meetings straight from her hectic morning, carrying that frazzled energy with her. We created what I call the 7-second reset. Now, before every important interaction, she stops outside the door and does three things. First, she plants her feet firmly, shoulders back, chin slightly up. This triggers what Harvard researchers call the power pose effect. Your body literally changes your brain chemistry. Second, she takes one deep breath, focusing on the slow exhale. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, calming those fight or flight signals. Third, she thinks of one thing she's genuinely grateful for about the upcoming interaction. This shifts her energy from self-conscious to other-focused. The results? Her donor retention rate jumped 40% in 6 months. But here's what people get wrong about first impressions. They think it's about perfection. It's not. It's about presence. I've seen speakers trip on their way to the podium and win the room by how they handled it. I've watched salespeople spill coffee and turn it into their biggest account by responding with genuine humanity. Think about the most charismatic person you know. I bet they're not perfect, but I guarantee they're present. They're right there with you, not lost in their head, not checking their phone, not scanning the room for someone more important. The secret to nailing those 7 seconds is preparation, not perfection. It's about walking in ready to connect, not ready to perform. Try this. Before your next important meeting, arrive 5 minutes early. Find a quiet spot even if it's just the bathroom. Stand tall, breathe deep, and remind yourself you're not there to prove yourself. You're there to connect, to contribute, to engage. Those 7 seconds? They're not a test to pass. They're an opportunity to show up as your most present, prepared self. Master this, and you'll find doors opening before you even reach for the handle. Have you ever watched someone's face light up when you remember their name? I mean, really light up like you just gave them an unexpected gift? Because that's exactly what you did. Let me tell you about Miguel, a young doctor who was about to quit his residency. I'm good with diagnoses, he told me, but terrible with names. My patients don't trust me because I have to keep asking who they are. His voice cracked when he said this. For him, it wasn't just embarrassing, it was threatening his dream career. Here's what most people don't understand about names. They're not just labels. They're identity. They're dignity. They're the sweetest sound in any language to the person who owns that name. When you forget someone's name, you're not just forgetting a word, you're telling them they weren't memorable enough to stick in your mind. But here's the good news. Remembering names isn't a talent, it's a technique. And Miguel, he mastered it in 3 weeks. The secret isn't in trying to memorize, it's in learning to truly notice. Most of us don't forget names. We never really learn them in the first place. We're too busy thinking about what we're going to say next, or worried about making a good impression. Let me share the 3-step system that turned Miguel from the forgetful doctor to the one patient specifically requests. First, the moment of introduction. When someone tells you their name, stop everything else. Look them in the eye. Listen to the sound of their name like it's a piece of music. Is it Jennifer? Feel the 3 rhythmic beats. Mohammed? Let the melody of those 3 syllables sink in. Second, the echo effect. Use their name immediately in a natural way. Not the artificial, nice to meet you, Jennifer, but something genuine like, you know, Jennifer, that's my sister's name too. Or simply, Jennifer, what brings you here today? This isn't just politeness, you're creating a neural connection. Third, the mental snapshot. This is where most people stop, but this is where the magic happens. Create a vivid, even ridiculous image that connects their name to something about them. Miguel met a patient named Mrs. Bridge who had striking blue eyes. In his mind, he pictured a bright blue bridge spanning across those eyes. Silly? Maybe. But 6 months later, he still remembers her name. But what about difficult names? That's what Miguel asked me. Names I've never heard before? Simple. Ask them. I want to make sure I get your name right. Could you say it again for me? People aren't offended by your desire to learn their name correctly. They're touched by it. The transformation in Miguel's practice was dramatic. Patient compliance improved, referrals increased. Why? Because people feel safer with a doctor who knows their name. They feel seen, understood. Important. Try this today. In your next 3 introductions, use this system. Look, listen, echo, picture. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Just engage with each name like it matters, because to its owner it matters more than you know. Remember, every time you remember someone's name, you're not just recalling a word, you're holding up a mirror that reflects their value. You're saying, "You matter enough to occupy space in my memory." And in a world where we're all fighting to be remembered, that's a gift that costs you nothing but means everything. Let me tell you about the biggest mistake I see successful people make. I watched it happen last month at a CEO roundtable in Seattle. Some brilliant guy, tech founder, was networking with potential investors. He asked all the right questions, nodded at all the right moments, smiled right on cue, and he failed completely. Why? Because everyone in that room could feel the difference between courtesy and curiosity. They could sense that Tom wasn't really interested in their answers, he was interested in their checkbooks. Here's what fascinates me. We're hardwired to detect fake interest. It's like we have this built-in authenticity radar that's been refined over millions of years of evolution. You can't hack it. You can't fake it. The only way to bypass it is with genuine curiosity. But here's the life-changing part. Real curiosity isn't something you perform, it's something you cultivate. Take Rachel, a sales director I worked with. She came to me frustrated. I'm doing everything right. I ask about their families, their hobbies, their weekends, but it feels mechanical. That's when I shared with her what I call the detective's secret. You see, great detectives don't start with answers. They start with genuine questions. They're fascinated by the puzzle of each person they meet. Here's how Rachel transformed her approach. Instead of asking, "How was your weekend?" Courtesy, she started asking, "What was the highlight of your weekend?" Curiosity. Instead of, "What do you do?" Courtesy, she began with, "What made you choose your field?" Curiosity. Instead of, "How's business?" Courtesy, she asked, "What's the most interesting challenge you're working on right now?" Curiosity. The difference? Courtesy skims the surface. Curiosity dives deep. But here's the real magic. When Rachel started asking questions she genuinely wanted answers to, something shifted. Her meetings ran longer. Her clients opened up more. Why? Because real curiosity has a ripple effect. When you're genuinely interested, people don't just share information, they share themselves. I remember watching Rachel in a client meeting a month after we worked together. The client mentioned gardening in passing. The old Rachel would have nodded politely and moved on. The new Rachel lit up. Container gardening or open ground? I've always wondered about the differences. It wasn't a calculated move. She was genuinely curious. And that client, who started as a small account, ended up becoming her biggest referral source. Here's your challenge. In your next conversation, catch yourself when you're about to ask a courtesy question. Pause. Ask yourself, what am I genuinely curious about with this person? What would I love to learn? Some starter questions that open hearts. What's the story behind that? What surprised you most about? What got you started in? What keeps you excited about? But remember, and this is crucial, these questions only work if you actually care about the answers. If you don't, they're just sophisticated forms of courtesy. The beautiful paradox? The more genuinely interested you become in others, the more interesting you become to them. Not because you're trying to be interesting, but because real curiosity is like a mirror. It reflects back the value you see in others. In a world of small talk and surface connections, genuine curiosity is your secret weapon. It's the difference between being remembered and being forgotten, between making contacts and making friends, between building a network and building relationships that last a lifetime. So next time you meet someone new, don't be courteous, be curious. Don't just listen to respond, listen to discover. Because inside every person you meet is a story waiting to fascinate you if only you're genuinely interested enough to find it. I want to tell you about David, a brilliant lawyer who was losing clients faster than he could sign them. His expertise? Unquestionable. His track record? Impressive. His problem? He couldn't stop talking. I need them to understand how much I know, he told me, frustrated after losing another potential client. I need to show them my expertise. What David didn't realize, what most of us don't realize, is that influence doesn't come from talking. It comes from listening, real listening, the kind that makes people feel like they're the only person in the room. Let me share what happened in David's next client meeting after we worked together. A woman came in, furious about a contract dispute. The old David would have jumped in with solutions, citations, and strategies. The new David did something radical. He shut up and listened. Not the passive, waiting for your turn to talk kind of listening. Active listening. The kind that leans in, that notices not just words, but the emotions behind them. He used what I call the mirror and expand technique. Mirror. So what I'm hearing is, you feel they violated the core agreement. Expand. Tell me more about when you first noticed something wasn't right. Something extraordinary happened. The client, who came in defensive and angry, gradually relaxed. Her voice softened. She started sharing crucial details she might have otherwise kept hidden. By the end of the meeting, she wasn't just hiring David, she was thanking him for understanding her situation so thoroughly. Here's what most people get wrong about listening. They think it's passive. They think it's about being quiet. But real listening is one of the most active things you can do. When you truly listen, you're watching for emotional cues in body language, noting the words people choose, catching the subtle shifts in tone, following the thread of what's not being said. I taught David a simple technique I call the 90-10 rule. In the first 10 minutes of any interaction, you should be listening 90% of the time. Not thinking about what you'll say next, not planning your response, just listening. But what do I actually do while listening? That's what David asked me. Here's the framework I gave him. First level, mirror their last important point. The deadline pressure is really intense. Second level, validate the emotion behind it. That kind of pressure must be incredibly stressful. Third level, expand with a curious question. What would make this more manageable for you? The transformation in David's practice was dramatic. His client retention rate doubled in 3 months. Why? Because he stopped trying to prove he was the smartest person in the room and started making his clients feel like they were. Try this exercise. In your next important conversation, set a silent timer for 2 minutes. Your only job during those 2 minutes is to listen and ask questions that go deeper. No sharing your experience. No giving advice. Just pure curiosity and attention. You'll be amazed at what people tell you when they feel truly heard. Remember, everyone you meet is carrying a story they want to share. They're not waiting for your advice, they're waiting for your attention. They're not looking for your opinion, they're looking for your understanding. In a world where everyone is talking, the person who truly listens becomes unforgettable. Because when you give someone your complete attention, you're giving them something almost no one else does, the experience of being fully understood. And that, more than any words you could say, is what makes people trust you, remember you, and want to work with you again and again. Let me tell you about Lisa, an investment advisor who made an extraordinary discovery during a seemingly routine client meeting. She was sitting with Robert, a potential client who seemed distant, uninterested. She tried her usual presentation about market trends and investment strategies. Nothing connected. Then she noticed something on his desk, a small model sailboat. "Do you sail?" she asked. What happened next changed everything. Robert's entire demeanor transformed. His eyes lit up, his posture shifted, and for the next 15 minutes he talked passionately about his restored 1960s sailboat. Lisa, who knew nothing about sailing, simply listened with genuine interest. By the end of that meeting, Robert had transferred his entire portfolio to her management. Later, he told her why, "You're the first advisor who took the time to see me as a person, not just a portfolio." Here's what Lisa discovered, what I've seen proven thousands of times. Everyone has a subject that lights them up. Finding it is like discovering the key to a locked room. Once you find it, everything changes. But here's the tricky part. You have to navigate this discovery with genuine humility and interest. Nothing kills connection faster than trying to one-up someone's passion. I remember working with Marcus, a tech executive who was struggling with team relationships. He had a habit of demonstrating his expertise in everyone else's interests. When someone mentioned photography, he'd launch into a lecture about camera specs. When someone talked about cooking, he'd correct their technique. He was knowledgeable, but he was killing connections. We developed what I call the passion permission approach. 1. Look for the spark. Watch for that subtle shift in energy when someone mentions a topic. It might be a slight lean forward, a change in voice tone, a sudden hand gesture. 2. Give permission to engage. Use phrases like, "Tell me more about that. What got you started with? What's your favorite part of?" 3. Stay in the student's seat. Even if you know about the subject, maintain genuine curiosity. Remember, the goal isn't to show what you know, it's to let them show what they love. Marcus tried this in his next team meeting. When his UX designer mentioned urban gardening, instead of sharing his own extensive knowledge, he asked, "What made you start growing your own food?" The conversation that followed did more for team bonding than a dozen official team-building events. Here's a powerful truth. People don't remember what you tell them nearly as much as they remember how you made them feel when they were sharing their passions. Try this simple technique I call interest mapping. Notice the photos on their desk or wall. Pay attention to what they do in their free time. Watch what makes them animate in casual conversation. Note what they share on professional networks. Booten, this is crucial. Don't treat this like a detective game. Treat it like you're being given previews of fascinating stories. Some gentle ways to uncover passions. What do you love to do when you're not working? What's been capturing your interest lately? What would you do more of if you had extra time? The real art lies in what you do next. When someone shares their passion, do. Ask specific, curious questions. Share their enthusiasm. Connect them with related resources or people. Don't. Compete with their expertise. Dismiss their interest. Rush to share your own similar experiences. Remember, humility is your greatest ally here. Even if you're an expert sailor, when someone's telling you about their first sailing experience, be amazed, be curious, let them teach you. Because here's the beautiful truth. When you let someone share their passion, you're not just learning about boats or gardens or cameras, you're learning about them. You're seeing what makes their eyes light up, what drives them, what matters to them. And in that moment of sharing, something magical happens. They don't just feel heard, they feel understood. In a world where everyone's trying to prove how interesting they are, being genuinely interested is your superpower. So the next time you meet someone, remember, hidden within them is a subject that makes them come alive. Find it, honor it, and watch as doors open that no amount of expertise could unlock. Let me share something that happened at a hospital in Detroit last year. Maria, a new hospital administrator, was facing a crisis. Staff turnover was at an all-time high, patient satisfaction was plummeting, and morale was in the basement. The previous administrator had tried everything: bonuses, team-building events, motivational speakers. Nothing worked. Then Maria did something revolutionary. She started making rounds every morning. Not the usual administrative walkthrough. She did something different. She learned everyone's names, not just the doctors and nurses, but the janitors, the cafeteria workers, the parking attendants. She asked about their families, remembered their stories, asked their opinions about improving hospital operations. 6 months later, turnover had dropped by 60%. Patient satisfaction scores shot up. The same hospital, the same staff, the same challenges. What changed? Maria had tapped into what William James called the deepest human craving, the need to feel important. Not famous, not praised, important. Here's what most people get wrong about making others feel important. They think it's about grand gestures or constant compliments. But real importance is about being seen, heard, and valued for who you are and what you contribute. Let me tell you about James, a factory floor manager I worked with. He was brilliant at this. I watched him transform a struggling production line not through new processes or procedures, but through what I call importance marketing. Here's what he did. 1. He created solution sessions where line workers could share their ideas for improvements. But here's the key. He didn't just listen. He implemented their ideas and gave them full credit. 2. He started acknowledging not just what people did, but how they did it. Mike, the way you handled that equipment changeover this morning, so smooth and efficient. Would you be willing to show the new shift your technique? 3. He made importance personal. When Elena mentioned her daughter's science fair project, James asked about it the following week. When Raj talked about his mother's surgery, James checked in regularly. The results? Productivity up 40%, accidents down 65%, same workers, same machines, different level of engagement. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. You can't fake this. People have an almost supernatural ability to detect insincerity. The key is finding genuine reasons to value each person you encounter. Try this exercise I taught James. I call it the 3 levels of importance. Level 1, professional value. Your attention to detail on these reports makes my job so much easier. The way you handle difficult customers is something we all learn from. Level 2, personal impact. You know, the energy you bring to our morning meetings really sets a positive tone for everyone. I've noticed how you always make new team members feel welcome. Level 3, human connection. I appreciate how you always ask about my kids. Your perspective on this really opened my eyes to something I hadn't considered. But remember, and this is essential importance, isn't just about words, it's about actions. Here are some practical ways to demonstrate it. Ask for their opinion, especially in their area of expertise. Remember and follow up on important events in their lives. Share credit generously and specifically. Make time for them, especially when you're busy. Implement their suggestions and acknowledge their contribution. Here's a powerful technique I call importance architecture. 1. Notice something specific about their work or contribution. 2. Connect it to a larger impact. 3. Express genuine appreciation for both. Example: Jim, that extra time you spent training the new hire yesterday, specific action, means she'll be up to speed so much faster, which helps our whole department, larger impact. Your patience as a trainer is really valuable to our team. Genuine appreciation. But here's the most important part, the part Maria at the hospital understood intuitively. Making others feel important isn't a technique to be mastered. It's a way of seeing the world. It's about recognizing that every person you encounter has something valuable to offer, something unique to contribute. Because here's the truth. People will forget what you achieved, they'll forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel about themselves. In a world where everyone is fighting to be recognized, be the one who recognizes others. In a culture obsessed with individual achievement, be the one who celebrates collective contribution, because when you make others feel genuinely important, you don't just change their day, you change their way of seeing themselves. And that's a gift that keeps giving long after you've moved on. Let me tell you about 2 salespeople I observed at a luxury car dealership in Boston. Both were successful, but their approaches couldn't have been more different. First, there was Alex. He was what people typically think of as a natural salesperson, smooth, quick with compliments. That suit looks amazing on you. You must be a CEO with that presence. I can tell you're someone who appreciates the finer things. Then there was Diana. She took a different approach. When a customer mentioned they'd researched fuel efficiency, she'd say, I appreciate how thoroughly you've done your homework. That kind of attention to detail helps us find exactly the right car for you. When someone shared their concerns about safety features, she'd respond, Your focus on your family's safety tells me a lot about what matters to you. Let me show you how this model addresses those specific concerns. Care to guess who had higher customer satisfaction scores? Who had more repeat buyers? Who built a network of referrals that lasted decades? Diana understood something crucial. Flattery is like sugar sweet but empty. Appreciation is like nutrients that feed something deeper. Here's what most people get wrong about appreciation. They think it's about making people feel good. But real appreciation isn't about making people feel good, it's about recognizing what is genuinely good in them. I worked with Jennifer, a new manager struggling with team morale. She'd been taught to praise lavishly. So she did. Great job. You're amazing. Fantastic work. But her team wasn't responding. If anything, they seemed more disengaged. We developed what I call the three-layer appreciation approach. Layer 1. Specific action. What exactly did they do? Layer 2. Real impact. How did it matter? Layer 3. Character insight. What does it reveal about them? Here's how Jennifer transformed a generic, great job on that report into meaningful appreciation. The way you included client feedback quotes in the report, specific action, made our proposal much more convincing to the board. Real impact. It shows how well you understand the power of real voices in storytelling. Character insight. The difference? Night and day. Because now she wasn't just praising, she was seeing and acknowledging real value. But here's the challenging part. Finding something genuinely praiseworthy requires actual attention. You have to look, you have to notice, you have to care enough to understand what matters. Try this exercise I taught Jennifer. I call it the appreciation lens. Every day, set out to find one genuinely praiseworthy thing about 3 different people. Not surface stuff, not easy compliments, something that required them to use their skills, their judgment, their character. Some questions to help you look deeper. What challenges did they overcome to accomplish this? How did their unique perspective improve the outcome? What values does their action demonstrate? Here's the magic. When you start looking for things to genuinely appreciate, you start seeing people differently. You notice the quiet competence, the small kindnesses, the moments of wisdom that usually go unremarked. Bhutan, this is crucial. Delivery matters as much as content. Here's how to ensure your appreciation lands. I do. Be specific about what you noticed. Connect it to meaningful impact. Make it about their choices and actions. Share it in a way that fits the relationship. Don't exaggerate the praise. Make it about innate qualities. Add qualifiers. Good job, but use it to ask for something. I taught Jennifer a simple daily practice I call the appreciation audit. Morning. Set an intention to notice praiseworthy actions. During, take mental notes of specific positive impacts. Evening. Express genuine appreciation for one thing you noticed. The results in her team were dramatic, not because she was praising more, but because she was seeing more. Her team didn't just feel flattered, they felt understood. Remember, flattery is about making an impression. Appreciation is about paying attention. Flattery focuses on making people feel good in the moment. Appreciation focuses on recognizing the good that's already there. In a world full of shallow compliments and easy praise, genuine appreciation stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. Because when you take the time to truly see and acknowledge the good in others, you're not just making them feel better, you're helping them see themselves more clearly. And that's a gift that no amount of flattery can match. Let me tell you about two responses to the same mistake. It happened at a major consulting firm in Chicago. A junior consultant, let's call her Amanda, made a significant error in a client presentation. The numbers were wrong, not dramatically wrong, but wrong enough to matter. Her colleague Peter's response? Damage control, explanations, justifications. The data was unclear. The client changed parameters. The timeline was rushed. He spent 3 days trying to minimize the error. Amanda's response? She walked into her client's office the moment she discovered the mistake. I made an error in my calculations. Here's where I went wrong. Here's the correct data. And here's what I'm putting in place to make sure this never happens again. Total time elapsed 45 minutes. 1 month later, Peter's client had moved their business elsewhere. Amanda's client had doubled their contract. Here's what most people get wrong about admitting mistakes. They think it makes them look weak. But there's something fascinating about human psychology. We trust people more after they admit a fault than we did before. Why? Because perfection isn't trustworthy, it's suspicious. I worked with Michael, a new CEO struggling with a company culture of cover-ups and blame shifting. Every mistake sparked a witch hunt. Every error bred fear. Productivity was tanking because people were spending more energy hiding problems than solving them. So we implemented what I call the speed of admission principle. The faster you admit a mistake, the more trust you build. The more trust you build, the faster problems get solved. Here's the framework we developed. 1. Immediate recognition. The moment you realize you've made a mistake, stop. Don't wait. Don't assess the political winds. Don't build a defense. 2. Clear admission. No hedging. No mistakes were made. Use the words I and my. I made a mistake. My calculation was wrong. I misunderstood the requirement. 3. Specific impact. Acknowledge exactly what your mistake affected. This means the project will be delayed by 2 days. This impacts the bottom line by. This requires the team to redo. 4. Concrete solution. Not just it won't happen again, but exactly how. I've built a double-check step into my process. I've set up automated verification. I've scheduled weekly review meetings. The transformation in Michael's company was remarkable. Within 6 months, problem resolution, time cut in half, employee satisfaction up 40%, innovation initiatives doubled. Why? Because when people aren't afraid of mistakes, they stop hiding them. When they stop hiding them, they start fixing them. When they start fixing them, they start preventing them. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people stumble. Timing is everything. The longer you wait to admit a mistake, the more trust it costs to fix it. I taught Michael's team what I call the trust mathematics of mistakes. Immediate admission, Jaya 1. Clear responsibility, Jaya 1. Specific solution, 222. Trust gained. Delayed admission, Jawan. Partial responsibility, Jawan. Vague promises, trust lost exponentially. Try this exercise. The next time you make a mistake, and we all will, start a timer. How long between discovering your error and admitting it? That's your admission gap. Your goal? Shrink it to 0. Some powerful phrases that build trust through admission. I was wrong about that. I missed something important here. I should have checked more carefully. I jumped to the wrong conclusion. Baton, this is essential, these phrases. Only work if they're immediate, no delay. Complete, no partial admissions. Solution-focused, not just apology. Remember, every mistake is 2 opportunities. First, the opportunity to learn from what went wrong. Second, and this is the one, most people miss the opportunity to build trust by how you handle it. Because here's the truth about mistakes. They're not the opposite of success. They're a necessary part of it. What matters isn't that you never fail, it's how quickly you admit, learn, and grow from each failure. In a world obsessed with appearing perfect, the person who can admit their faults instantly becomes paradoxically more respected, more trusted, and more influential. Because at the end of the day, people don't follow perfect leaders, they follow honest ones. Let me tell you about two coffee shops in downtown Seattle. Same street, same coffee, same prices, but one had lines out the door while the other struggled to stay open. The difference? The first 3 seconds of every customer interaction. At the struggling shop, customers were greeted with, "Next in line." At the thriving shop, they heard, "Welcome, great to see you this morning." Same words? No. Same intention? Not even close. Same results? Absolutely not. I spent a week observing Emma, the manager of the successful shop, training her new staff. What she taught them wasn't just customer service, it was the art of beginning warmly. Those first 3 seconds, she'd say, that's when people decide if they're just buying coffee or becoming part of our community. Here's what most people get wrong about warm beginnings. They think it's about being nice. But true warmth isn't about being nice, it's about being present and authentic from the very first moment. I worked with Robert, a brilliant surgeon who couldn't understand why his patient satisfaction scores were low, despite his excellent technical skills. We discovered the issue in the first 30 seconds of his patient interactions. He'd walk in, head down, reading the chart. So, chest pain for 3 days? No greeting, no connection, no warmth. We developed what I call the warm start protocol. 1. The energy reset. Before entering any interaction, take one deep breath. Uncross your arms. Lift your face. Think one positive thought. 1. The 3-second connect. Eye contact. Genuine smile. Warm greeting. 1. The bridge moment. One small personal connection before business. How was your drive in? This weather's something else, isn't it? That's a great scarf. The transformation in Robert's practice was immediate. Same medical expertise, same procedures, completely different patient experience. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. You have to prepare your energy before the interaction begins. You can't warm up mid-conversation. Try this exercise I taught Robert. I call it the energy ritual. Before any important interaction, stand tall for 3 seconds. Smile for 3 seconds. Set a positive intention for 3 seconds. 9 seconds total. Seems small, but it changes everything. Some powerful warm start phrases. I'm so glad we're meeting today. I've been looking forward to. Thank you for making the time. But remember, this is essential. The words matter less than the energy behind them. Think of warmth as a light. You have to turn it on before opening the door. Here's a daily practice I call the warmth workout. Morning. Set your intention to begin every interaction warmly. Practice your smile in the mirror. Yes, really. Choose your bridge questions for the day. During, reset before each new interaction. Lead with warmth. Notice the response. Evening. Reflect on which warm starts worked best. Adjust your approach for tomorrow. The results? When Robert implemented this, patient satisfaction jumped 40%. Referrals increased. Even his surgical outcomes improved. Less anxious patients heal better. But here's the most fascinating part. Starting warmly doesn't just change how others respond to you, it changes how you experience your own day. Emma, the coffee shop manager, put it perfectly. When you begin each interaction with warmth, you're not just setting the tone for them, you're setting it for yourself. Because here's the truth about warm beginnings. They're not just social skills, they're life skills. In a world that often feels cold and disconnected, the ability to create instant warmth is like having a superpower. Remember, every interaction is a door. You can walk through it cold, rushing to get to the other side, or you can walk through it warmly, making the journey itself meaningful. In the end, it's not about how many doors you walk through. It's about how much warmth you bring through each one. Let me tell you about two divorce lawyers in Chicago, both brilliant, both experienced, both with impressive win records in court. But one had a waiting list of clients, while the other struggled to keep their practice afloat. The difference? Their approach to conflict. Sandra, the struggling lawyer, was known for her aggressive stance. "I'll fight for every penny. We'll show them they're wrong. We'll win this argument." Then there was Marcus. His first question to every client was different. "What would peace look like for you?" I watched Marcus handle what could have been an explosive situation. His client was furious about their ex's latest custody demand. The old playbook would say, "Argue, fight, prove them wrong." Instead, Marcus said something fascinating. "You know what? They might have a point about Wednesday afternoons. Let's explore what's driving that request." The result? A resolution in 2 weeks instead of 6 months of bitter court battles. Both parties felt heard. Both saved thousands in legal fees. Both walked away with dignity intact. Here's what most people get wrong about avoiding arguments. They think it means surrendering their position. But the real art isn't in giving up, it's in giving up the need to be right. I worked with Claire, a senior executive facing constant conflicts with her team. Her default response to any disagreement? Debate, prove her point, win the argument. We developed what I call the peaceful power approach. 1. The pause. When you feel the urge to argue, stop, take one breath, ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be effective? 2. The bridge. Find something you can agree with. You make an interesting point about. I can see why you might feel that way. That's a perspective I hadn't considered. 3. The redirect. Move from opposition to exploration. Help me understand more about. What if we looked at it this way? Could we explore another approach? The transformation in Claire's leadership was remarkable. Same knowledge, same goals, completely different results. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail avoiding arguments, isn't about being passive. It's about being strategic. Try this exercise I taught Claire. I call it the agreement first technique. Before expressing any disagreement, find 3 points you can genuinely agree with. Acknowledge the emotion behind their position. Share what you've learned from their perspective. Some powerful phrases that prevent arguments. You might be right about that. I never thought of it that way. Tell me more. That's an interesting perspective. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're genuine, not patronizing, followed by real listening. Used to build bridges, not dodge issues. Here's a daily practice I call the peace path. Morning. Set your intention to seek understanding, not victory. Prepare your bridge-building phrases. Remember, peace is power. During, look for opportunities to agree. Ask questions instead of making statements. Focus on shared goals. Evening. Reflect on conflicts avoided. Celebrate peaceful resolutions. Plan better approaches for tomorrow. The results? When Claire implemented this, team productivity increased 35%. Employee retention improved. Her own stress levels dropped dramatically. But here's the most fascinating part. When you get skilled at avoiding arguments, you don't just prevent conflicts, you build allies. Marcus, the divorce lawyer, explained it perfectly. In 15 years of practice, I've never seen anyone argued into changing their mind. But I've seen countless people listened into changing their perspective. Because here's the truth about arguments. The moment you engage in one, you've already lost something valuable, the opportunity to understand, to connect, to find a better way together. Remember, arguments are like fires. They consume everything: time, energy, relationships, opportunities. The real skill isn't in winning them, it's in preventing them from starting in the first place. In a world where everyone's fighting to be right, be the one who's fighting to understand. Because in the end, it's not about winning arguments. It's about winning trust, respect, and lasting relationships. Let me tell you about a fascinating experiment I witnessed at a tech company in San Francisco. They were developing a new app, and two teams had completely opposite views on the user interface. Team A wanted simplicity, three buttons, clean design, minimal options. Team B argued for functionality, customization, advanced features, maximum control. Traditional wisdom would say, pick a side, have a debate, let the best argument win. But their new product manager, Sophia, did something different. Instead of choosing between opinions, she started respecting both. Her first statement in the heated design meeting: both of these perspectives come from deeply caring about our users. Let's understand why. What happened next was remarkable. The same teams that had been locked in conflict for weeks started building something neither had imagined: a Lonian interface that was both simple and powerful. Here's what most people get wrong about respecting opinions. They think it means agreeing with them. But true respect isn't about agreement, it's about understanding why intelligent, well-meaning people might see things differently than you do. I worked with James, a school principal, struggling with a divided faculty over teaching methods, traditional versus progressive, structure versus flexibility. Each side convinced they were right. We developed what I call the perspective bridge approach. 1. The foundation. Start with this fundamental truth. Most opinions are formed from real experiences and genuine concerns. 2. The inquiry. Instead of judging opinions, explore their origins. What experiences led you to this view? Help me understand the concerns behind this position. What outcomes are you hoping to achieve? 3. The integration. Look for how different perspectives might complement rather than conflict. How might we combine these insights? What if both views are pointing to something important? The transformation in James's school was profound. Same teachers, same debates, completely different dynamics. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail: respect must be genuine and curious, not tactical and superficial. Try this exercise I taught James. I call it the opinion origin story. Before dismissing any opinion, imagine what life experiences might have shaped it. Consider what values it might represent. Look for the legitimate concerns it might address. Some powerful phrases that demonstrate real respect. I can see how you'd come to that conclusion. That's a thoughtful perspective on. You've clearly given this careful consideration. I appreciate you sharing that view. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're followed by genuine curiosity, free from hidden judgment. Used to build understanding, not just manage conflict. Here's a daily practice I call the respect ritual. Morning. Set an intention to seek understanding in disagreement. Prepare your curiosity questions. Remember, every opinion has a story. During, listen for the values behind positions. Ask about experiences that shaped views. Look for legitimate concerns in different perspectives. Evening. Reflect on opinions you struggled to respect. Consider what you learned from different views. Plan better responses for tomorrow. The results? When James implemented this, faculty meetings became collaborative instead of combative. Teaching innovations increased. Student outcomes improved across both traditional and progressive methods. But here's the most fascinating part. When you genuinely respect different opinions, you don't just avoid conflict, you create possibility. Sophia, the product manager, explained it perfectly. The moment we stopped trying to prove which side was right and started respecting why each side cared so much, we unlocked solutions nobody had seen before. Because here's the truth about opinions. They're like windows, each offering a different view of the same reality. The more windows you look through, the more complete your understanding becomes. Remember, respect isn't about validating every opinion as equally correct. It's about acknowledging that every opinion, even those you disagree with, might offer a piece of the puzzle you're missing. In a world increasingly divided by different views, the ability to genuinely respect diverse opinions isn't just a social skill, it's a superpower. Because when you can respect perspectives different from your own, You don't just avoid conflict, you create connections that bridge divides and build understanding. And in the end, it's not about whose opinion wins. It's about what we can learn from each other when we stop defending our views long enough to truly understand someone else's. Let me tell you about two change management consultants who approached the same challenge in radically different ways. A major manufacturing company needed to adopt new safety protocols changes that would initially slow production but ultimately save lives. Karen's approach was direct: present the data, show the benefits, push for implementation. Michael's approach was different: ask questions, plant seeds, let solutions emerge. Both were equally knowledgeable, both wanted the same outcome, but their results, night and day. Karen faced resistance at every turn. Workers saw her ideas as corporate impositions. Management saw them as productivity threats. 6 months in, compliance was barely 20%. Michael started differently. In meetings, he'd ask, "What's your biggest safety concern on the floor?" He'd listen as workers described near misses. Then he'd wonder aloud, what if we could prevent that entirely? 3 months later, the workers were presenting their own safety initiatives to management. Compliance hit 95%. The fascinating part? Many of their new ideas were exactly what Michael had planned to suggest, but now they owned them. Here's what most people get wrong about influence. They think it's about pushing their ideas forward, but real influence isn't about pushing, it's about planting. I worked with Sarah, a brilliant chief medical officer trying to get her hospital staff to adopt new sanitation procedures. Her initial approach: lectures, mandates, statistics. The result? Minimal compliance and maximum resentment. We developed what I call the seed and grow method. 1. Plant the seed. Instead of presenting solutions, present questions. What if we could cut infections by half? How would you solve this if resources weren't an issue? What's worked best in your experience? 2. Nurture growth. When someone shares a kernel of an idea, show genuine interest. Ask expanding questions. Connect it to larger goals. 1. Celebrate ownership. When they develop the solution you were hoping for, give full credit. Support their implementation. Share their success. The transformation in Sarah's hospital was remarkable. Same protocols, same goals, completely different adoption rate. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. You have to be genuinely willing to let go of being the source of the idea. Try this exercise I taught Sarah. I call it the invisible innovation technique. Before presenting any change, list 3 questions that might lead to your solution. Identify key stakeholders who could discover the answer. Plan how to support their ownership of the idea. Some powerful seed planting phrases. What are your thoughts on? How would you approach? I'm curious what you think about. What if we could? But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're genuine questions, not leading statements. Ask with real curiosity, followed by patient listening. Here's a daily practice I call the ownership path. Morning. Identify ideas you want to advance. Convert them into exploratory questions. Plan your seeding conversations. During, listen more than you speak. Celebrate others' insights. Connect ideas to their concerns. Evening. Track which seeds took root. Note whose ownership grew. Plan tomorrow's cultivation. The results? When Sarah implemented this, protocol compliance reached 98%. Staff satisfaction improved. Innovation increased across all departments. But here's the most fascinating part. When people own an idea, they don't just implement it, they improve it. Michael, the safety consultant, explained it perfectly. The solutions they developed were better than what I would have suggested because they knew the daily realities I couldn't see. Because here's the truth about ideas. People don't resist change nearly as much as they resist being changed. When they own the idea, they own the change. Remember, your goal isn't to be the source of every solution. It's to be the catalyst for others discovering solutions they'll champion. In a world obsessed with individual genius, Be the gardener who plants seeds of possibility and delights in watching others harvest the results, because in the end, it's not about whose idea it was. It's about how many people are invested in making it succeed. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, I think you might be onto something there. Let me tell you about two suicide hotline counselors. Both were equally trained, both were equally compassionate, both worked the same late night shifts, but one had twice the success rate in calming crisis situations. The difference, the warmth in her voice. I spent a week studying Amy's calls. What I discovered changed how I understand human connection. It wasn't what she said that made the difference, it was how she said it. "Hello, I'm here with you," she'd say, her voice carrying the same warmth you'd use to comfort a close friend. The transformation in callers was almost immediate. Their breathing would slow, their tone would soften, connection would begin. Here's what most people get wrong about voice. They think it's fixed, like height or eye color. But your voice is an instrument, and like any instrument, it can be tuned for maximum impact. I worked with Marcus, a pediatrician struggling to connect with anxious children and their parents. His medical knowledge was excellent, but his voice, shaped by years of delivering clinical information, had become detached, mechanical. We developed what I call the voice warmth protocol. 1. The physical foundation. Relax your shoulders. Breathe from your diaphragm. Smile gently while speaking. Keep your jaw loose. 1. The emotional connection. Before speaking, imagine you're talking to someone you love. You're sharing good news. You're welcoming someone home. 1. The technical elements. Lower your pitch slightly. Slow your pace. Add subtle variation in tone. End sentences with a gentle downturn. The transformation in Marcus's practice was immediate. Same words, same information, completely different patient response. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Voice warmth has to start with internal warmth. You can't fake it from the throat up. Try this exercise I taught Marcus. I call it the morning voice ritual. Before your first interaction of the day, take 3 deep breaths. Hum gently for 30 seconds. Smile and say good morning to yourself. Notice how your voice feels. Some powerful vocal warm-up phrases. "I'm so glad you're here. Tell me more about that. How can I help you today? Let's figure this out together." But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're supported by warm breath, delivered with genuine care, matched with positive intention. Here's a daily practice I call the voice journal. Morning. Set your intention for vocal warmth. Do physical warm-ups. Practice key phrases with feeling. During, monitor your voice's temperature. Reset when tension creeps in. Stay connected to your breath. Evening. Review your warmest moments. Note what worked best. Plan tomorrow's voice goals. The results? When Marcus implemented this, patient compliance improved 40%. Parent satisfaction soared. Even his colleagues started responding differently. But here's the most fascinating part. When you warm up your voice, you don't just change how others receive your message, you change how you feel delivering it. Amy, the crisis counselor, explained it perfectly. When I speak with warmth, I feel more connected to my own compassion. It's like my voice becomes a bridge between my heart and theirs. Because here's the truth about voice. It's not just a tool for delivering words. It's an instrument for conveying care, building trust, and creating connection. Remember, your voice carries more than your message. It carries your presence, your intention, your ability to make others feel safe and understood. In a world increasingly mediated by screens and devices, the warmth in your voice becomes even more crucial. It's the human touch in your words, the emotional resonance that no emoji can replace. And sometimes, in the darkest moments, the warmth in your hello might be the lifeline someone needs to hold on to hope. Practice your instrument, tune it for warmth, play it with care, Because every time you speak, you're not just sharing information, you're creating an emotional experience for everyone who hears you. Let me tell you about an experiment I witnessed at two identical coffee shops in Portland. Both served the same coffee, both had the same prices, both even had similar layouts. But one had customers who stayed 40% longer and spent 30% more. The difference? How the baristas handled one simple question: how are you today? At the first shop, baristas would answer briefly and move on to taking orders. Professional, efficient, forgettable. At the second shop, after a quick "I'm good, thanks," the baristas would turn the question back. How are you? You seemed deep in thought when you walked in. What happened next was fascinating. People would light up. They'd share about their day, their work, their lives. The line might move a bit slower, but something magical was happening. People weren't just buying coffee. They were finding connection. Here's what most people get wrong about conversation. They think it's about the exchange of information. But neuroscience tells us something different. Talking about ourselves activates the same pleasure centers in our brain as food, money, or love. I worked with Elena, a financial advisor struggling to build her client base. Her presentations were flawless. Her knowledge was comprehensive, but something wasn't clicking. We developed what I call the golden silence method. 1. The opening. Start with an inviting question. What brought you to this point? What matters most to you right now? What's your story with money? 2. The space. Create room for real sharing. Maintain engaged eye contact. Offer encouraging micro nods. Stay genuinely curious. 1. The patience. Resist the urge to fill silences. Share similar stories. Offer immediate solutions. The transformation in Elena's practice was remarkable. Same expertise, same services, completely different client engagement. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. You have to be genuinely interested in what people share, not just strategically silent. Try this exercise I taught Elena. I call it the self-story invitation. Before any important meeting, prepare 3 open-ended questions. Plan your listening signals. Set aside your need to contribute. Some powerful invitation phrases. Tell me more about. What was that like for you? How did you come to? What led you to? But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're asked with genuine interest, given space to breathe, followed by attentive silence. Here's a daily practice I call the listening space. Morning. Set your intention to create space for others. Practice your invitation questions. Prepare your patience. During, notice when others want to share. Create safe spaces for stories. Resist the urge to compete or compare. Evening. Reflect on what you learned. Note whose stories surprised you. Plan better questions for tomorrow. The results? When Elena implemented this, client retention reached 95%. Referrals tripled. Assets under management doubled. But here's the most fascinating part. When you let others speak about themselves, you don't just learn about them, you give them the rare gift of feeling truly heard. The manager of that successful coffee shop explained it perfectly. People don't come back for the coffee, they come back for how they feel when they're here. And nothing makes people feel better than being heard. Because here's the truth about human nature. We're all carrying stories we want to share, insights we want to offer, experiences we want to be validated. Remember, every person you meet is like a book with 1,000 pages. Your job isn't to write their story, it's to create the space where they feel safe enough to share it. In a world where everyone is fighting to be heard, be the one who actually listens. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Just watch what happens when you ask a genuine question, then lean back and create the space for someone to share their story. You might be amazed at what you learn and at how quickly they come to trust the person who gave them the gift of being heard. Let me tell you about 2 writing teachers I observed at a community college in Boston. Both taught the same introductory course. Both had the same curriculum. Both were equally qualified. But one had a dropout rate of 30% while the other's was less than 5%. The difference? How they handled the first awkward attempts at creativity. Linda, with the high dropout rate, focused on final outcomes. Good effort, but this needs work. You're getting there, but... Then there was Sam. He'd circle a single well-turned phrase in an otherwise struggling essay and write, "This sentence right here?" Pure poetry. He'd highlight one vivid description, "I can actually see this momentum, more of this." What happened next was fascinating. Students in Sam's class started writing longer essays, taking more risks, sharing more openly. Not because they were more talented, but because someone was noticing their smallest steps forward. Here's what most people get wrong about praise. They think it needs to be saved for big achievements, but real growth happens in tiny increments, and those tiny steps deserve recognition. I worked with Maria, a physical therapist struggling with patient motivation. Her expertise was excellent, but her patients often gave up before seeing major progress. We developed what I call the micro-progress recognition approach. 1. The tiny win spotlight. Notice and name the smallest improvements. Your range of motion increased 2 degrees today. You held that position 3 seconds longer. Your balance is slightly steadier. 2. The future bridge. Connect small progress to larger goals. That extra degree of movement, that's getting you closer to holding your grandchild. Those 3 seconds, they're building the strength you'll need for hiking. 3. The progress portfolio. Document tiny improvements so they can't be forgotten. Take notes of small wins. Share progress patterns. Celebrate trend lines, not just endpoints. The transformation in Maria's practice was immediate. Same exercises, same recovery paths, completely different patient persistence. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. The praise has to be specific, genuine, and immediately tied to effort. Try this exercise I taught Maria. I call it the effort acknowledgement map. Before any interaction, identify 3 potential areas of progress. Plan how to measure micro improvements. Prepare specific praise phrases, some powerful micro praise phrases. I noticed you. That small change in the way you adjusted. This detail right here. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're immediate, right after the effort, specific, not general praise, genuine, tied to real observation. Here's a daily practice I call the progress lens. Morning. Set your intention to notice small efforts. Prepare your praise vocabulary. Plan your observation points. During, watch for tiny improvements. Acknowledge effort immediately. Document small wins. Evening. Review the day's progress. Notes. Plan tomorrow's observation focus. Prepare specific praise points. The results? When Maria implemented this, patient compliance increased 60%. Recovery times improved. Referrals doubled. But here's the most fascinating part. When you praise tiny efforts, you don't just motivate others, you train them to notice their own progress. Sam, the writing teacher, explained it perfectly. I'm not just teaching them to write, I'm teaching them to see their own growth. Once they can spot their own tiny wins, they become unstoppable. Because here's the truth about human motivation. We don't leap to success, we climb there, one small step at a time. Each of those steps deserves recognition. Remember, every masterpiece began with a single stroke. Every marathon started with one step. Every skill was built on thousands of tiny efforts. In a world obsessed with grand achievements, be the one who celebrates the small steps. Because when you praise tiny efforts, you're not just acknowledging progress, you're fueling the engine of growth. And sometimes, that one moment of recognition, I see what you did there, is all someone needs to keep going when they might have given up. After all, every mighty oak started as an acorn that just moved a little bit toward the light. Let me tell you about two workplace safety trainers I observed at a manufacturing plant in Detroit. Both knew their material inside and out. Both had years of experience. Both were passionate about preventing accidents. But one had employees checking their phones during presentations. The other had them sitting forward in their chairs, completely engaged. The difference? How they presented the same information. Mark stuck to the facts. Proper lifting technique reduces back injuries by 47%. Then there was Anna. She'd start with, "See this scar? 3 inches long. Got it when I thought I was too experienced to need proper lifting technique. Let me tell you what happened that Tuesday morning." The statistics were the same. The information was identical. But Anna understood something crucial. The human brain doesn't remember statistics. It remembers stories. Here's what most people get wrong about presenting ideas. They think data persuades. But neuroscience shows us something different. Our brains are wired for narrative, not numbers. I worked with Dr. Chen, a brilliant researcher struggling to get funding for his groundbreaking work. His presentations were technically perfect, but emotionally flat. We developed what I call the story state solution method. 1. The story hook. Start with a moment of tension. Imagine waking up and suddenly, there I was, staring at results that made no sense. The patient looked at me and asked the one question I couldn't answer. 2. The emotional stakes. Make the problem personal. Show who's affected. Paint the human cost. Create emotional investment. 1. The visual victory. Don't just describe the solution, show it. Use vivid metaphors. Create memorable images. Demonstrate transformation. The transformation in Dr. Chen's presentations was dramatic. Same research, same data, completely different audience response. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Drama isn't about being theatrical. It's about making ideas visible, tangible, and emotionally resonant. Try this exercise I taught Dr. Chen. I call it the dramatic translation. Before presenting any idea, find the human story within it. Identify the emotional core. Create a visual metaphor. Some powerful, dramatic elements. Picture this. Let me show you what this means. Imagine if. Here's what happens next. But remember, and this is essential, these techniques only work if they're authentic to your style, relevant to your message, connected to real stakes. Here's a daily practice I call the drama workshop. Morning. Choose one key idea to dramatize. Find its emotional heart. Plan your story elements. During, watch for natural dramatic moments. Collect vivid details. Note what resonates with others. Evening. Review which stories worked. Refine your dramatic tools. Plan tomorrow's narratives. The results? When Dr. Chen implemented this, grant funding tripled. Media coverage increased. Public engagement soared. But here's the most fascinating part. When you dramatize ideas effectively, you don't just transfer information, you create experiences that stick. Anna, the safety trainer, explained it perfectly. I'm not just teaching them procedures, I'm giving them memories they can't forget when it matters most. Because here's the truth about human communication. We don't remember what we're told. We remember what we feel, what we see, what we experience. Remember, every great idea is a story waiting to be told. Your job isn't just to present information, it's to bring that information to life. In a world drowning in data, be the one who creates memories. Because when you dramatize your ideas effectively, you're not just sharing information, you're creating moments that change how people think, feel, and act. And sometimes the right story told at the right moment doesn't just convey an idea, it transforms how someone sees the world forever. After all, we've been gathering around fires, sharing tales since the dawn of humanity. That's not just tradition, it's how our brains are wired to learn, to remember, and to change. Let me tell you about two fundraisers for the same children's hospital. Both were equally passionate. Both had the same goal. Both were asking the same donors for support. The first focused on tax benefits and naming rights. Your donation is fully deductible and your name will be prominently displayed. The second took a different approach. She shared stories of breakthrough treatments, of families reunited, of hope restored. Then she'd say, "You have the power to write the next chapter of these stories. You can be the reason a child goes home healthy." The difference in results? The second fundraiser consistently raised triple the amounts of the first. Why? Because she understood something profound about human nature. While we might act on self-interest, we yearn to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Here's what most people get wrong about motivation. They think it's all about incentives, but the most powerful motivator isn't what people can get, it's who they can become. I worked with Kevin, a team leader at a software company struggling with employee engagement. His initial approach was typical: bonuses, perks, competitive incentives. We developed what I call the Noble Purpose Framework. 1. The higher vision. Connect daily work to deeper meaning. We're not just fixing bugsware, making technology human-friendly. We're not just writing code, we're solving problems that matter. 2. The impact story. Show the ripple effect of their work. Who benefits? What changes? Why it matters beyond the bottom line. 1. The legacy question. Help people see their lasting contribution. What mark will we leave? How will this make a difference? What story will people tell about this? The transformation in Kevin's team was remarkable. Same work, same challenges, completely different energy. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Appeals to noble motives must be genuine and grounded in real impact. Try this exercise I taught Kevin. I call it the noble translation. Before any major initiative, identify its human impact. Find its connection to larger values. Frame it in terms of contribution, not competition. Some powerful, noble motive phrases. You have the opportunity to. This is how we make a difference. Think about the impact on. You can be the one who. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're authentic to your values, connected to real outcomes, supported by your actions. Here's a daily practice I call the Noble Navigator. Morning. Connect your day's work to larger purpose. Identify opportunities for meaningful impact. Prepare your noble narrative. During, look for chances to elevate the conversation. Highlight meaningful consequences. Celebrate purposeful actions. Evening. Review the day's meaningful moments. Note what resonated most. Plan tomorrow's noble opportunities. The results? When Kevin implemented this, team retention improved 70%. Innovation increased. Customer satisfaction soared. But here's the most fascinating part. When you appeal to noble motives, you don't just change behavior, you transform identity. The successful hospital fundraiser explained it perfectly. I'm not asking them to write checks. I'm inviting them to become heroes in a child's life story. Because here's the truth about human motivation. We all want to matter. We all want to contribute. We all want our lives to mean something beyond our own comfort and success. Remember, inside every person is a desire to be part of something meaningful. Your job isn't to sell them on benefits, it's to show them how they can make a difference. In a world obsessed with personal gain, be the one who appeals to personal greatness. Because when you connect people to noble purposes, you don't just motivate them, you inspire them to become their best selves. And sometimes that simple shift from what's in it for me to what difference can I make doesn't just change decisions, it changes lives. After all, the greatest leaders in history didn't just offer incentives, they offered opportunities to be part of something bigger than ourselves. They knew that while benefits might drive decisions, purpose drives dedication. Let me tell you about two teachers I observed in an inner-city high school mathematics program. Both taught advanced calculus. Both had the same curriculum. Both faced the same challenges with students who'd been told they weren't math people. The first teacher focused on getting students to pass. Let's just try to get through this. The second teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, took a radically different approach. On the first day of class, she'd tell her students, "I'm going to teach this course as if you're all future mathematicians. Not because I expect you all to become mathematicians, but because I know you're capable of thinking like one." The results? While the first teacher's students mostly met minimum requirements, Ms. Rodriguez's students consistently performed 2 grade levels above expectations. Same students, same material. Entirely different outcomes. Here's what most people get wrong about challenging others. They think it's about pushing people harder, but real challenge isn't about pressure, it's about possibility. I worked with Daniel, a restaurant manager struggling with a young, inexperienced staff. His initial approach was to minimize expectations, simple tasks, basic responsibilities, constant supervision. We developed what I call the growth challenge method. 1. The vision declaration. Start with a bold statement of possibility. I see leadership potential in you. You have what it takes to master this. I'm going to treat you like the expert you can become. 2. The stretch assignment. Give tasks slightly beyond current comfort. Provide challenging but achievable goals. Offer support without rescue. Celebrate effort as much as outcome. 1. The growth feedback. Focus on development, not just performance. Here's what I noticed about your approach. This challenge revealed your strengths in. Let's explore what you learned from this. The transformation in Daniel's restaurant was profound. Same staff, same jobs, completely different level of performance. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. The challenge must be coupled with genuine belief and tangible support. Try this exercise I taught Daniel. I call it the potential activation. Before assigning any task, identify one stretch element. Plan your support strategy. Prepare growth-focused feedback. Some powerful challenge phrases. I trust you to handle this. I've noticed your capacity for. This is challenging, but I believe you're ready. Let's push beyond the usual here. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're backed by genuine confidence, supported with resources, followed by patient mentoring. Here's a daily practice I call the Growth Guide. Morning. Set stretch opportunities for your team. Prepare your belief statements. Plan your support actions. During, look for growth moments. Offer real-time encouragement. Celebrate effort and learning. Evening. Review growth, progress, note what challenges worked. Plan tomorrow's stretch goals. The results? When Daniel implemented this, staff turnover dropped 60%. Customer satisfaction soared. Internal promotion rates tripled. But here's the most fascinating part. When you challenge people while believing in them, you don't just improve their performance, you transform their self-image. Ms. Rodriguez explained it perfectly. I'm not just teaching them calculus, I'm teaching them to see themselves as people capable of mastering calculus. That change in self-image lasts far longer than any formula I could teach them. Because here's the truth about human potential. People will rarely exceed their own expectations, but they'll frequently exceed their own predictions when someone they respect believes in them. Remember, inside every person is capacity far greater than they realize. Your job isn't to get them to meet requirement sites, to help them discover their own capabilities. In a world that often settles for good enough, be the one who sees and demands the extraordinary. Because when you combine high expectations with high support, you don't just get better performance, you create transformation. And sometimes that simple statement, "I believe you can do this," doesn't just change what someone does, it changes who they believe they are. After all, the greatest leaders don't just manage performance, they inspire growth. They know that while competence might meet today's needs, it's the challenge to grow that creates tomorrow's leaders. Let me tell you about 2 entrepreneurs who lost everything in the same market crash. Both had built successful companies. Both saw their life's work evaporate in a matter of weeks. Both had to lay off beloved employees. The first, Thomas, became bitter, withdrew, blamed himself and others. His network, sensing his negativity, gradually drifted away. The second, Grace, did something remarkable. The day after laying off her last employee, she started making calls not to look for investments, but to help her former team members find new positions. She maintained her warmth, kept showing up at industry events, and continued building relationships. 6 months later, Thomas was still struggling alone. Grace had 3 new business opportunities and had helped place 90% of her former team in good positions. The difference? Not their circumstances, but their response to adversity. Here's what most people get wrong about maintaining warmth through setbacks. They think it's about pretending everything's fine. But real resilience isn't about denial, it's about choosing to remain connected even when you're hurting. I worked with Sandra, a sales director facing the worst quarter in her company's history. Her initial response was to retreat, to focus solely on numbers, to let her relationships grow cold. We developed what I call the resilient warmth protocol. 1. The morning reset. Start each day with an emotional reboot. 3 deep breaths. 1 genuine smile. A moment of gratitude. A commitment to connection. 1. The connection focus. In every interaction, regardless of circumstances, make eye contact. Share genuine warmth. Find something to appreciate. Offer value where you can. 1. The setback reframe. Transform challenges into connection points. We're all learning from this. This is making us stronger. We'll figure this out together. The transformation in Sandra's team was remarkable. Same challenges, same pressures, completely different energy. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Maintaining warmth through setbacks requires deliberate practice and genuine self-care. Try this exercise I taught Sandra. I call it the warmth maintenance. Before facing any challenge, ground yourself in your values. Remember your human connection. Choose your response consciously. Some powerful, resilient warmth phrases. We've got this together. This is tough, but so are we. I believe in what we're doing. Let's find a way forward. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're grounded in genuine strength, balanced with appropriate concern, supported by real action. Here's a daily practice I call the resilience ritual. Morning. Set your emotional foundation. Practice your warm responses. Prepare for challenges. During, maintain connection through difficulty. Look for opportunities to add value. Keep your smile genuine. Evening. Review your warmth wins. Release the day's tension. Plan tomorrow's resilience. The results? When Sandra implemented this, team morale stabilized, customer relationships strengthened, recovery happened faster. But here's the most fascinating part. When you maintain warmth through setbacks, you don't just preserve relationships, you build deeper trust. Grace, the resilient entrepreneur, explained it perfectly. Anyone can be warm when things are going well. It's when you maintain that warmth through tough times that people really learn who you are. Because here's the truth about human connection. It's tested not in our successes, but in our setbacks. How we handle adversity shapes not just our outcomes, but our relationships. Remember, every setback is an opportunity to demonstrate the depth of your character and the strength of your connections. In a world that often turns cold in the face of challenge, be the one who maintains warmth. Because when you keep smiling through setbacks, not with fake cheerfulness, but with genuine resilience, you don't just survive difficulties. You help others find their strength too. And sometimes that genuine smile in a tough moment doesn't just maintain a connection, it becomes the bridge someone else needs to cross their own valley of difficulty. After all, the greatest test of our ability to connect isn't how we act when everything's going right. It's how we maintain our humanity when everything's going wrong. Let me tell you about two department heads at a major hospital. Both were equally qualified. Both managed similar sized teams. Both faced the same institutional challenges. Janet focused on big initiatives, quarterly team building events, annual recognition ceremonies, major policy overhauls. Then there was Michael. Every morning he'd walk through his department with a small notebook. He'd notice new family photos on desks. Remember someone mentioned their child's recital. Ask about a sick parent. Make note of tiny changes and achievements. When a crisis hit the hospital and departments needed to collaborate quickly, guess whose team had support from every other department? Guess who could get things done across institutional boundaries? Michael had built his bridges long before he needed to cross them. Here's what most people get wrong about relationship building. They think it's about grand gestures, but real connections are built through small, daily acts of noticing and caring. I worked with Lisa, a new regional manager struggling to connect her 12 retail locations. Her initial approach was typical: monthly meetings, formal reports, structured interactions. We developed what I call the Daily Bridge Blueprint. 1. The morning map. Start each day by identifying 3 people to connect with, 3 opportunities to notice, 3 chances to add value. 1. The connection moments. Look for tiny opportunities, personal milestones, small achievements, minor changes, quiet contributions. 1. The follow through. Keep track and follow up. Note what matters to people. Remember their stories. Connect past conversations to present moments. The transformation in Lisa's region was profound. Same stores, same staff, completely different level of cooperation. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Bridge building has to be consistent and genuine, not tactical and sporadic. Try this exercise I taught Lisa. I call it the Bridge Builder's Checklist. Every day, find ways to notice something new about 3 people. Connect 2 people who could help each other. Follow up on 1 previous conversation. Recognize 1 quiet achievement. Learn 1 new name. Some powerful bridge building phrases. I remembered you mentioned. I noticed the change in. That connects with what you said about. Someone told me about your. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're based on genuine observation, followed by real listening, part of ongoing attention. Here's a daily practice I call the Bridge Journal. Morning. Review yesterday's notes. Plan today's connections. Set your noticing intentions. During, collect moments and observations. Make unexpected connections. Follow up on previous notes. Evening. Document new learnings. Plan tomorrow's follow-ups. Note bridge building opportunities. The results? When Lisa implemented this, inter-store cooperation increased 80%. Employee retention improved. Customer satisfaction rose across all locations. But here's the most fascinating part. When you build bridges daily, you don't just create connections, you create a network of mutual support that activates long before you need it. Michael, the hospital department head, explained it perfectly. By the time you need a bridge, it's too late to build it. The time to build connections is in all the small moments before they become crucial. Because here's the truth about human networks. They're not built in emergencies or formal meetings. They're built in tiny moments of noticing, caring, and connecting. Remember, every day offers countless opportunities to build bridges. Your job isn't to construct massive monuments of connection, it's to lay down small planks of understanding, 1 interaction at a time. In a world increasingly focused on digital connections, be the one who builds real human bridges. Because when you consistently notice, remember, and connect, you don't just build a network, you create a community. And sometimes that simple act of remembering someone's story, noting their achievement, or connecting them with a helpful resource doesn't just build a bridge, it creates a lifetime of loyalty and trust. After all, the strongest bridges aren't built with grand ceremonies and ribbon cuttings. They're built with countless small acts of attention, care, and connection, laid down day after day, person by person, moment by moment. Let me tell you about two chefs at competing restaurants in Manhattan. Both were talented. Both had been publicly criticized by the same food critic. Both had their recipes copied by former employees who opened rival establishments. The first chef, Anthony, became bitter. He banned the critic from his restaurant, threatened legal action against his former employees, posted angry responses to every negative review. The second chef, Marie, did something unexpected. She invited the critic back, asking for specific feedback. When she saw her former employees' restaurants, she sent them notes saying, "Proud to see you growing in the industry. My kitchen is always open if you want to collaborate." A year later, Anthony's restaurant was struggling, surrounded by enemies. Marie's had become a hub of culinary innovation, with a network of allies across the city. Here's what most people get wrong about handling slights and setbacks. They think holding grudges protects them. But grudges are like poison that you drink, hoping the other person will get sick. I worked with David, a senior executive dealing with a painful corporate betrayal. His initial response was typical: withdrawal, retaliation, protective isolation. We developed what I call the Grace Growth Protocol. 1. The initial pause. When faced with a slight or betrayal, take 3 deep breaths. Ask, "What can I learn?" Consider, "How might this grow me?" 1. The grace response. Choose actions that elevate. Find understanding without excusing. Maintain dignity without revenge. Create opportunity from obstacle. 1. The forward focus. Transform energy from revenge to growth. Channel anger into excellence. Convert hurt into learning. Use setbacks as setup for comeback. The transformation in David's leadership was remarkable. Same challenges, same competitors, completely different energy. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Choosing grace isn't about being weak. It's about being strong enough to break the cycle of negativity. Try this exercise I taught David. I call it the Grace Choice Checklist. Before responding to any slight, find one legitimate human factor. Identify one growth opportunity. Plan one graceful action. Choose one way to rise above. Some powerful grace phrases. I appreciate the feedback. Let's find a way forward. I wish you well. We can both grow from this. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're genuine, not passive-aggressive, forward-looking, not scorekeeping, growth-focused, not self-righteous. Here's a daily practice I call the Grace Journal. Morning. Release yesterday's grudges. Set your grace intentions. Prepare your high road responses. During, look for opportunities to show grace. Transform triggers into growth. Choose elevation over retaliation. Evening. Celebrate your grace victories. Release new grievances. Plan tomorrow's high ground. The results? When David implemented this, team trust increased. Innovation flourished. Partnerships strengthened. But here's the most fascinating part. When you choose grace over grudges, you don't just free others from your judgment, you free yourself from the burden of resentment. Marie, the graceful chef, explained it perfectly. Every minute I spend holding a grudge is a minute I'm not spending creating something amazing. By choosing grace, I keep my energy focused on growth. Because here's the truth about grace. It's not about letting people off the hook. It's about unhooking yourself from the weight of resentment. Remember, every slight is an opportunity. You can use it as a brick to build walls or as a step to build character. In a world quick to take offense and slow to forgive, be the one who chooses grace. Because when you respond to difficulty with dignity, you don't just avoid enemies, you create allies. And sometimes that simple choice to rise above, to respond with grace, to choose growth over grudges, doesn't just preserve your peace, it becomes a model that transforms the culture around you. After all, The most powerful response to any slight isn't revenge, it's rising above it with such grace that you inspire others to rise too. Let me tell you about my most memorable cab ride in New York City. It wasn't the fastest or the cheapest. In fact, construction made it painfully slow. But the driver, Abdul, transformed those 30 minutes into a master class in human connection. He noticed I looked tired, asked if I'd come from the airport. When I mentioned I was heading to a crucial presentation, he adjusted the AC, offered a bottle of water, and said something I'll never forget. You know, in my 20 years of driving, I've learned that everyone who steps into my cab is carrying something. Maybe it's excitement, maybe it's worry. My job isn't just to get them from A to B, it's to make sure they step out of this cab better than when they stepped in. Here's what most people get wrong about making an impact. They think it requires grand gestures or formal positions of authority. But real impact happens in small moments, brief interactions, tiny choices to lift rather than lower. I worked with Rachel, a customer service manager at a major airline. Her team handled thousands of interactions daily. Her initial focus was efficiency, quick solutions, standard responses, next customer. We developed what I call the better than found method. 1. The impact intention. Start each interaction with the goal. How can I add value here? What does this person need most? How can I make this moment matter? 1. The elevation opportunity. Look for chances to share useful insights, offer unexpected help, create moments of connection, leave lasting positive impressions. 1. The legacy question. End each interaction by asking, did I leave them better? What will they remember? How will this shape their day? The transformation in Rachel's department was profound. Same job, same challenges, completely different impact. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Leaving people better isn't about grand gestures, it's about consistent care in small moments. Try this exercise I taught Rachel. I call it the better check. In every interaction, find ways to add one piece of value, share one useful insight, create one positive moment, leave one lasting impression. Some powerful impact phrases. Let me share something that might help. I learned something that could be useful. Here's a little extra that might make a difference. Take this with you. But remember, and this is essential, these phrases only work if they're matched to real needs, delivered with genuine care, focused on their growth. Here's a daily practice I call the Impact Journal. Morning. Set your elevation intentions. Plan your value adds. Prepare your gift moments. During, look for lift opportunities. Create positive ripples. Add unexpected value. Evening. Review your impact moments. Note what worked best. Plan tomorrow's elevations. The results? When Rachel implemented this, customer satisfaction soared. Employee fulfillment increased. Positive word of mouth exploded. But here's the most fascinating part. When you focus on leaving people better, you don't just improve their day, you create ripples that travel far beyond your sight. Abdul, that wise cab driver, explained it perfectly. Sometimes I hear from passengers months later. They remember that one ride, that one conversation, that one moment when someone cared enough to make their journey better. Because here's the truth about human impact. Every interaction is an opportunity. Every conversation is a chance to lift. Every moment contains the potential to leave someone better than you found them. Remember, you might be just another person they meet today, but you could be the person who changes how they see themselves, their work, their possibilities. In a world often focused on taking, be the one who keeps giving. Because when you consistently leave people better than you found them, you don't just create good moments, you create lasting change. And sometimes that simple choice to add value, to lift spirits, to leave people better, doesn't just improve their day, it starts a chain reaction of positive impact that touches lives you'll never see. After all, the greatest measure of our impact isn't in what we achieve for ourselves. It's in how many lives are better because they crossed our path. So let me ask you, Who will you leave better today? What moment will you transform? What impact will you create? Because in the end, it's not about the techniques you've learned in these chapters. It's not about the skills you've developed or the strategies you've mastered. It's about one simple choice made moment by moment, day by day. Will you leave the next person you meet better than you found them? That choice, more than any other, will determine not just your success, but your significance. Choose wisely. Choose consistently. Choose to lift, to add value, to leave people better. Because in that choice lies not just the secret to making people like you instantly, but the key to creating a life of lasting impact and meaningful connection. And that, more than anything else, is a legacy worth leaving.